Well, I want to talk about a topic that is sort of one of those topics people don't talk about.
No, and it should be talked about more.
That's true, because there's a lot of emotion around it, and so it's avoided because it's a very, very emotional topic for women, especially, and husbands. It's infertility, and I've invited Callista to join me today because she actually has personally experienced this in years past, and we're going to just chat about it today and the experience of infertility, because she's now since had her daughter, and you're pregnant again. How many years did you experience the world of infertility?
It was 7.5 years until we had Hazel.
Okay.
So.
What proved to be what changed that took you out? What was your situation that allowed you to get pregnant?
It was a process, obviously, when I first got married, we waited a few months, which we look back now and laugh at. We're like, that was a pointless effort. But because I was teaching school. A few months
turned into 7.5 years.
Yeah, so I was teaching school at the time, so we were going to wait so that I would have a baby in the summer, plan it.
Sure.
So I didn't get pregnant. It was about 7 months, then I got pregnant, and after we started trying. But then I miscarried at 12 weeks. And it was pretty routine. Routine, I say that, physically, as far as there wasn't any complications. There wasn't any...
as miscarriages go,
it all went
by medical standards, a very routine
and
case of it.
my recovery was fine physically. Emotionally, it was pretty bad. It took me about a year before I felt good again.
Oh, yeah.
Spent a lot of time just laying in bed. But so we didn't think we had a hard time getting pregnant because, that's still within normal range, 7 months.
Sure.
That's not a big deal. So we didn't really consider anything. And then we decided we'd start trying again about a year after that. And nothing, time went by. And I started looking at, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's this. And so I'm very into my health and natural medicine and things like that. So I started different, like creams and cleanses and diets and
to increase the chances.
Yeah, just trying everything I could think of, but I really didn't know what I was facing, so it was kind of like I was just hitting the hit or miss, shooting in the dark kind of.
Had you gone to the doctor
to? Because I was afraid to. Because you don't want to admit it. You don't want to.
You don't want to know if it's like you're not going to have.
Yeah, you don't want to face the possibility of what they might tell you.
Yeah.
Also,
you're hoping it's just. Well, this cleanse will take care of it.
Exactly. I'll just do this. This worked for so-and-so.
How long did you do that?
We did that for about 4 or 5 years.
Did you really?
Years. Yeah.
And you had never gone to the doctor?
Well, no, I did in that time. I
you
just
did.
Went to an OBGYN, your basic thing.
Right.
Which I feel like looking back now is kind of a waste of time.
You didn't go to an infertility specialist then?
I mean, really OBGYNs are great as far as women's health and delivering babies and stuff, but
they're not infertility specialists.
No, and so it's kind of a waste of time. So if you're dealing with this, just go straight.
You did eventually end up in an infertility practice.
Yeah. So and then after we had been married, it was right after our 5th anniversary, I got pregnant. And
had anything been done with the?
Well, the year before that, the winter before that, I did a raw food diet for a whole year, and I did a lot of acupuncture.
Okay.
And so I think that's why I got pregnant, because I didn't know what was happening. Now, looking back now, I know why that got me pregnant, but then a miscarriage followed at 7 weeks. And that was much physically harder than the first one, but it was kind of good because it got me thinking a little bit. And then my husband has a cousin, and she actually offered to carry a baby for us, which was a really good experience for us because it made us think we have options. And so we started exploring things a little more in depth. And I decided I was going to give myself 1 year. I said, this has gone on long enough, and I can't continue to spend every waking moment an hour reading, studying on the internet, trying this, trying that. And all my energy was exuded in this whole process constantly. That's all I did all the time. And I said, I can't continue to live like this for the next 10, 15 years until I am out of that phase of life of the possibility of having children.
Yeah.
And that was really what changed and kind of tipped the scales, because I decided I'm going to do everything I possibly can. And it was kind of interesting how that was triggered was my first miscarriage that we had while we were in vacation in Seattle. And we talked about doing a trip to Seattle again. My husband has family up there. And it brought up all of this emotion. And it really made me realize that I was not dealing with the emotions that were caused by the first miscarriage. And that was causing a lot of blocks for me, because I felt like as a woman I was a failure because I couldn't do the most fundamental thing I was created to do, physically. I couldn't do that, so I was a failure in that department. I was a failure as a wife because I knew my husband wanted children, and he was amazingly kind and supportive through the whole process. But I still felt like I was letting him down.
But had you been to the doctors yet to even look at...
Yeah. Oh,
you had?
I hadn't been to a fertility doctor yet. I had been to an OBGYN.
Okay, so you still didn't have that information.
No, I didn't know what was wrong with me. They're like, well...
Why did you wait to go? Why did you put it off? Oh, was it still that same thing?
It's just fear, and not wanting to get honest with yourself.
Yeah.
It's so, and you feel so alone because no one talks about it.
Yeah, I know. Well, some skill. I mean, you worked for us a lot of those years. You were involved with us. And, we'll talk about that in a second, because it's like, well, hey, can you not have, like what do you say?
Yeah.
So you're not able to have kids? Sorry about that, I'm just saying that on this side of it, it is a very... ambiguous subject. Well, yeah, fair. In all fairness, because there's a lot going on for the person too. Mm-hmm. You don't want to put them in an awkward situation.
Exactly.
You're trying to, if anything, by not talking about it, you think it's supportive, because you don't want to put any pressure on them have to talk about something that's so difficult.
Right. There's things that I think are good.
But let's go back to your story, because I want to see how it resolved itself.
So,
how you got the answers and how you got pregnant.
So I did go see a doctor and a regular OBGYN, and he recommended I get a test called HCG, which is it's an X-ray.
Yeah.
So we did that, and we found out that I had an abnormality with the shape of my uterus.
Okay.
But they weren't sure if anything could be done with it, because they thought it was one kind of problem.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing you could do about that.
Okay.
So I didn't pursue that further. But then I later found out that it was actually something else that could be fixed with surgery. And that was what
Did you go to a different doctor?
This is when I went to the fertility clinic. So, but I'll kind of go back to my story. So I had all these issues come up, and this was in the summer. And I said, well, I'm going to do this for a year. I'm going to do everything I can. Yeah. So I started working a lot with EFT. I wrote out all the things I was feeling,
Which is tapping, meridian tapping, so it's energy healing work.
You can learn a lot about that on caroltuttle.com. See if you want to learn more about that. So I did EFT, and I would write out my own scripts, and I would do a lot of that. I did a lot of meditating. I wrote affirmations that I would say every day. I actually recorded myself saying those, and so I would listen to them over and over again. Mm-hmm. And they were based on kind of the EFT scripts I wrote. I would use the reframes as my affirmations. So I did this for a few months, and I was really working on nutrition. I went completely off sugar, and did some other things just nutritionally to try to make sure I was in a good space. And then things started just opening up. And by September, I had a recommendation from 2 different people, and they ended up being for the same doctor. And so I made an appointment, but it took a few months. I had to be on a waiting list. So I saw him in November. And he recommended, he's just like, well, let's figure out why you miscarried first, because we don't want to get you pregnant and then have you lose the baby again. So we did an MRI, and everything just kind of just opened up one step after another once I started dealing with the emotional issues that were stopping me. And once I just determined I'm going to do whatever it takes, whatever possible. And I'm not going to limit myself by saying I'm not going to do this or I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do anything that it takes. I want to know when this year's over, if it's not in God's plan for me to have children, that I know that I did everything so I can have peace. So we had the MRI, and we found out that I did have the problem with my uterus that could be fixed with surgery. We also found out that I have something called PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which means I don't ovulate very often. So that's why I'd only gotten pregnant twice in 6 years, because I just don't ovulate very often.
Well, now you know what you're working with.
Exactly, and knowing those and getting your answers is so important. So I'd recommend doing that sooner doing whatever you need to do, because, you know, you spend...
That would be the advice you'd give yourself.
Go a lot sooner.
If you knew what you knew now, what you'd tell yourself back then.
Because, crying yourself to sleep every night gets old.
Yeah. So
and I'm not exaggerating.
So, okay, you had the surgery.
So I had the surgery.
Did they have to do anything about the PCOS?
Yeah. So I had to do fertility drugs.
Okay. And then how fast did you get pregnant?
I got pregnant the first cycle.
And no miscarriage.
Mm-mm.
And now you're pregnant
We did have
again.
a scare. I had to be on bed rest for a while.
Yeah, I remember that.
So that was a little bit scary, and she was kind of small.
This pregnancy's been...
This one happened all by itself. So...
Oh, see? Now you're like on your way. 10 kids later, she'll go, yeah, I remember when I was childless for 7.5 years.
Yeah,
now that you're having 10 children, but I'm just saying.
I don't plan on having 10 children.
I'm just saying.
But it's...
Your body.
Yeah.
No, and that's so important that what you were trying to correct couldn't be corrected because it was structural.
Right, and
you didn't know that.
Because I didn't know, so find out what's
Plus you needed to see, but you finally shifted to a place where you were willing to hear if the answer was you're just not going to be able to have children.
Yeah.
You were ready to hear that finally.
Yes, I was.
Which allowed you to then go into that space, which gave you your answer that's allowed you to have children. See, it was kind of a backwards kind of...
I had to disconnect my value and worth as a woman from being able to have children. I had to be able to say, I am valuable because I know what my plan is, what God's plan is for me, and I live true to that. I live true to the divine purpose that I was put here to live.
And it's not defined by being a mother.
Right, and that may or may not have included children.
Yeah.
And I was ready to be okay with that. So that's
what one last question. What tips or advice do you have for people who are the people in your world? How do we support people in this situation?
I think it's important for the person experiencing the problem to communicate what's happening to the people around them.
Give them, kind of what would be supportive to them.
Yeah, say, I didn't talk about it. I closed myself off. And it was at that same time, I decided, you know what? I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to let people know around me.
Did you let us know?
Some people I talked with, I think Anna and Sarah knew what was going on. And some of the people I worked with and Emily in the salon. Yeah. Because we worked together on a more daily basis. So we would ask each other what was happening and what was going on. And but let them be a part of it. I had a friend who joined me in my sugar fast, and she didn't eat sugar with me for a year.
Oh, that's cool.
So
just to support you.
Just to support me,
nice.
And my in-laws, my sister-in-laws, they got on board, and they would make me treats that were sugar-free.
Yeah.
And so they felt like they could offer me support in a way that...
Which I have to say, I think that a lot of what you did too, though, really supported your body being at an optimum level of health. Mm-hmm. That it was complementary to... Yeah. I
addressed all aspects of my person.
Yeah, you did. So that it was supportive to you. Once you had the procedures done, you were in a really good physical place.
Yeah. So just let people, let yourself be vulnerable. People want to love you and support you and help you.
Yeah. Like I said,
you don't know how,
you don't know how when you don't know kind of what's... Yeah, you have to invite it. You have to invite it and then teach people. Teach people what is supportive.
Yep. Because they don't know.
But you're funny because being type 4, she can be pretty blunt. But because we live in a culture here in Utah that's pretty, we're one of the most prolific childbearing states in the country, if not the most. And so it is a big part of the culture. And so there's a lot of pressure and just kind of you're put under a lot of just scrutiny because you don't have kids yet. Why
don't you have kids?
Why don't you have kids? And you got to the point where what were some of the things you'd say?
I just say things like, I can't have kids, or I'm the one with the problem. Because I just wanted to get it really clear.
Yeah. It's like,
I don't want to talk to you about this is why.
Yeah, because people that know you and love you, that are the closest to you, would most likely...
They wouldn't be asking me those kinds of questions. Yeah.
Those are just things that kind of the next level of people tend to say. Yeah. But thank you for your story. And we chatted before we started filming, there's no one way, right way. This is a world of a lot of ambiguity, really. This is a world of, it's highly emotional. It's very challenging because you just, if you've always wanted a family and you get to that point where you're now in a position you're choosing that and you don't, it's very alarming because you're like, wait a minute, why am I not able to have kids? And, we go on and on with all the things that come up for a person in this situation. But we hope that this has been supportive to you. and I could have 3-4 other women and their story would be different, and yet there'd be, I think, a similar theme in them to say you need to follow your own process and your own prayerful approach. And if you've been in this experience or having it, we'd love to have you share a comment of what's helped you and what supports you. And thank you for choosing to share it and talk about something that, like you said, probably needs to be talked about more.
Yeah.